Nietzsche warned, most people don't belong to themselves. They belong to the herd, and maybe you feel it too, surrounded by people but still a stranger. If you always feel like you don't belong, maybe it's because you were never meant to. Society calls this weakness. Nietzsche called it the first sign of awakening. This world is built for safety, sameness, comfort. Refuse to shrink into the box, and the herd will notice. In the next minutes, why you were never meant to blend in, how the herd quietly punishes you, and how outsiders turn loneliness into strength. So what happens when you stop pretending you belong? From the very beginning, you felt something was different. In school, you didn't laugh at the same things everyone else did. The conversations that made your classmates light up just left you silent. Later, at work, the chatter about sports, parties, or TV shows felt like noise you couldn't connect to. Even at home, around people who were supposed to know you best, you carried thoughts you couldn't share out loud. So you asked yourself, what's wrong with me? Why does it feel so easy for others to belong, to slip into groups, while you keep finding yourself standing on the edge? They share a language, a rhythm. You only find silence, and the silence is heavy. The truth is harsh, but clear. Society hates difference. The herd survives by sameness. One rhythm, one voice, a single pattern everyone can follow without thinking. If you stand out, even quietly, they notice. And once they notice, they push you back. Not always with violence, sometimes with small comments, a cold look, a hint that you should tone yourself down, enough to remind you that you don't belong unless you bend. Nietzsche had a word for this: the herd instinct. The instinct of the many to protect comfort, safety, and sameness. It promises belonging. It promises approval. And those things feel good. Who doesn't want to be accepted? But here's the cost. The moment you surrender to the herd, you trade away your individuality. You stop living as yourself and start living as a copy. That's why you feel the way you do. Not because you're broken, not because something is wrong with you, but because you can't fully vanish into the crowd. You can't kill the voice inside that wants more. And the herd senses that. They see it even when you don't say a word. And for that, they quietly resent you. So every time you've been rejected, ignored, or told to just be normal, it wasn't proof that you were weak. It was proof that you couldn't completely surrender, that you were unwilling to erase yourself just to belong. And that leads to the question Nietzsche leaves hanging in the air. If you don't belong to the herd, what are you meant for? When you live outside the herd, the first thing you feel is loneliness. It doesn't come as a choice, but as a consequence. You stop pretending, and suddenly the distance between you and others becomes visible. You sit with friends and realize they are speaking a language you no longer share. You listen to family and feel like their worries belong to a different world. The noise around you grows louder, but none of it reaches you. This loneliness can be brutal. It's not just being alone in a room. It's being surrounded by people and still feeling unseen. It's laughing along with others while knowing your laughter doesn't come from the same place. It's sharing a meal but tasting only the silence in your own head. That kind of loneliness cuts deeper than physical isolation because it tells you something simple but terrifying. You are not like the rest. Nietzsche understood this feeling. He lived it. He walked away from academic circles, broke ties with friends, even cut himself off from the woman he loved. He chose the path of an outsider because he refused to betray his own mind, and the price he paid was solitude. But for Nietzsche, solitude wasn't only suffering, it was also the furnace where individuality is forged. When you're outside the herd, you lose the easy comfort of belonging. You lose the background noise of approval. And in the silence that remains, you meet yourself. That silence can be unbearable at first. You might try to fill it with distractions, with shallow pleasures, with anything that numbs the weight of being different. But if you endure it long enough, the silence starts to change. What first felt like emptiness begins to feel like clarity. Most people never experience this. They stay in the herd because they fear loneliness more than anything. They'd rather be accepted for who they are not than rejected for who they are. But the outsider doesn't have that option. He carries the wound of separation, and in that wound lies his chance to grow. Think of the loneliness as a test. It asks, will you break under the weight of isolation, or will you use it to build strength? If you run from it, you fall back into the herd where sameness smothers you. If you face it, you learn that loneliness is not a prison, but a forge. In solitude, you discover your own voice, your own rhythm, your own law. This is why Nietzsche called solitude necessary for creators. Without it, you are only echoing the herd. With it, you can shape something new. The outsider's loneliness is not proof of weakness. It is proof that you are walking a path few dare to walk. And here lies the turning point. Once you see your loneliness as a signal, not a flaw, it becomes fuel. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What can I build from this silence?" When you live inside the herd, life feels easy. There are rules already set for you. There is a path already paved. You know what to study, what job to chase, what kind of person to marry, and even what opinions are safe to have. This is what Nietzsche called herd morality, the morality of the many. It is built on safety, comfort, and sameness. It tells you, do what we do, think what we think, and you'll be fine. But the price of that comfort is invisible. You become harmless. And Nietzsche believed nothing was more dangerous than a man who chose to be harmless. Because harmlessness means you never fight for your own truth. You never carry the weight of becoming who you really are. You just dissolve into the background like another copy in a long line of copies. Nietzsche believed that real life begins the moment you turn against this herd morality. That's when you start to create yourself. But this is not easy. It's not just about saying, "I'm different." It's about building a new foundation inside yourself, one that isn't borrowed from the crowd. To explain this, Nietzsche gave us the image of the three metamorphoses. First is the camel, the one who carries the weight of all the shoulds and musts that society piles on him. He bows his back and accepts it because he doesn't know any other way. Then comes the lion. The lion learns to say no. He breaks chains, destroys false duties, and dares to stand against the voice of the herd. But even the lion cannot create. He can only fight and reject. Finally comes the child. The child is innocence, creation, a new beginning. The child says, yes. He is able to imagine, to create values, to live out of play and strength, not duty. This journey, from camel to lion to child, is Nietzsche's map of self-creation. It is not about rebelling for the sake of rebellion. It is about burning away what is false, so that something true can be born in its place. And here's the hard part. The herd doesn't want lions, and it certainly doesn't want children. It wants camels. It wants carriers. People who will accept the weight, nod their heads, and march in line. Which is why outsiders, the ones who try to transform, are seen as dangerous. So ask yourself, Where are you on this path? Are you still carrying the weight of musts that aren't even yours? Have you learned to say no, or are you still afraid of the herd's disapproval? And most importantly, have you begun to say yes to yourself? When you step out of the herd, the path doesn't suddenly become clear and easy. It becomes harder, because the moment you no longer have the safety of belonging, you are forced to face yourself. And on that path, Nietzsche warned, there are traps. They don't come from the outside, but from inside you. The first trap is ressentiment, quiet resentment toward the world. You feel rejected, so you begin to hate the herd. You start to define yourself not by who you are, but by what you're against. Every insult, every rejection, every cold shoulder becomes fuel for bitterness. But Nietzsche saw ressentiment as poison. The more you feed it, the weaker you become. Because living in resentment means you are still chained to the herd. You are still letting them decide who you are. The second trap is ego, the illusion of superiority. Once you separate yourself from the herd, it's tempting to look back and think, I'm better than them. I see what they can't. This kind of pride feels powerful at first, but it is just another chain. Because it ties your value to comparison. You stop creating and you start performing, waiting for the herd to confirm your greatness. Nietzsche believed this is just another mask, another form of dependence. The third trap is nihilism, the belief that nothing matters. Once you tear down the values of the herd, you may look around and see emptiness. No clear rules, no ready-made meaning. This is the darkest stage. Nietzsche called it the danger of the abyss. Many who reach this point turn back, begging the herd to take them in again. Others collapse into despair, but Nietzsche's answer was not to give up. It was to create, to say yes to life by giving it your own meaning. These traps are dangerous because they look like strength. Bitterness feels like courage. Ego feels like power. Nihilism feels like truth. But each of them is a dead end. Ressentiment keeps you tied to the herd. Ego keeps you chained to their approval. Nihilism keeps you frozen in emptiness. The way out is not to deny the traps, but to recognize them, to see them for what they are. Temptations that wait for every outsider. And once you see them clearly, you can move past them. Because Nietzsche believed the true outsider is not defined by rejection, not trapped by pride, not destroyed by the abyss. He is defined by what he builds out of the silence. If you've come this far, you already know what it feels like to stand outside the herd. You've carried the weight of not belonging. You've felt the silence of loneliness. You've seen the traps of bitterness, ego, and despair. So the question becomes, what now? What do you actually do with this position? Nietzsche never wanted you to stay in suffering. His point was transformation. And transformation requires practice, not abstract ideas, but real steps. Here are 5. Think of them as the outsider's protocol, a way to turn separation into strength. Step 1. Boundaries. Stop proving yourself to everyone. You don't owe the herd an explanation. Every time you defend your difference, you hand your power back to them. Boundaries mean being clear about who gets your energy and who doesn't. If someone drains you, if a situation forces you to wear a mask, pull away. It's not weakness to walk out, it's strength. Step 2. Body first. Nietzsche believed in philosophy with blood in the veins. If your body collapses, your mind follows. That's why you sweat before screens. Train, move, push your limits physically, because discipline in the body becomes discipline in thought. Comfort softens you, hardship hardens you, and the outsider can't afford to be soft. Step 3. Craft. Loneliness becomes poison if you let it sit. But if you channel it into craft, it becomes power. Choose one thing, a skill, an art, a field of study, and give it hours, deep, uninterrupted hours, every day. In a world full of distractions, focus itself is rebellion. Your craft becomes your shield against emptiness, your proof that you are building something real. Step 4. Silence. We live drowning in noise, messages, notifications, endless chatter. Silence is rare, which is why you need it daily. 20 minutes without a screen. Walk, write, sit still. Let the mind settle. It is in silence that clarity appears. It is in silence that you start to hear your own voice instead of the echo of the herd. Step 5. Tribe selection. You don't need hundreds of friends. You need a few who see you. The outsider's path is not about isolation forever. It's about finding people who are walking their own path. Quality over quantity. 2 strong allies are worth more than a crowd of strangers. Choose carefully. Stay loyal. That is your real tribe. Taken together, these 5 steps do something powerful. They stop your difference from becoming a wound and start turning it into a weapon. Boundaries protect you. The body grounds you. Craft gives you direction. Silence gives you clarity. Tribe gives you strength. If you practice this for 90 days, you won't even recognize yourself. The same loneliness that once felt like punishment will start to feel like freedom. The same silence that once felt heavy will become your ally. The herd won't stop existing, but it will stop owning you. Nietzsche believed the outsider wasn't meant to hide or complain. He was meant to transform. And transformation is always built from daily steps, repeated until they form a life. Nietzsche's warning is clear. If you live for the herd, you will lose yourself. You will trade your voice for their approval, your freedom for their comfort. And in the end, you will discover that you lived as a copy, not as yourself. But if you dare to stand apart, the cost is loneliness. The cost is silence. The cost is feeling like you don't belong to this world. And yet, that is exactly the sign you are on the right path. Because you were never meant to be a servant of the herd. You were meant to overcome it. The outsider's pain is real. But it is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. Every moment of rejection, every time you felt like you didn't belong, can be turned into fuel. You don't need their approval. You need your own strength. And strength is built in the forge of solitude. Nietzsche believed that those who dare to live outside the herd carry the seed of something new. Not a copy, not a repeat, but a creation. A new value, a new way of living. That's why he said, the one who feels he does not belong to this world is the one who is meant to help create another. So if you've ever felt out of place, misunderstood, or condemned for being yourself, remember this. It is not proof of your weakness. It is proof of your potential. You were never meant for this world because your task is to shape the next one.